dichotomy that Peter is setting up here, right? So because we are born again of this living seed, right? This gospel, it's going to make a difference, right? If you truly are born again in this living seed, this gospel, it's going to make a difference in your life. If you are putting away these selfish things, this deceit, this slander, this envy, all that kind of stuff, if you're going to put this away, it's going to look and be different from the world around you, right? So he quotes Isaiah. He says, "See, I lay a stone in Zion, chosen and honored cornerstone, and the one who believes in him will never be put to shame." And so, right, verse 7. "So honor will come to you who believe before the unbelieving." Quotes Psalms here. "The stone that the builders rejected, this one has become the cornerstone, and a stone to stumble over, a rock to trip over. They stumbled because they disobeyed the word they were destined for." So he sets up this super cool dichotomy, right? In both representations, Jesus, the gospel, this upside down kingdom that Jesus sets up, is represented as a stone, right? A solid object, right? A solid, immovable object. In one case, it's the most important part of what you're going to build your life around, right? It's at least the way it's set up here, right? I have never built a house. I know we don't do stones anymore. But I do know that the cornerstone, when you're building a house like that, is super important. It is the stone by which everything else is measured off of, right? And so, because of that, if the gospel, if this upside-down kingdom that Jesus is setting up represents the cornerstone in your life, it is the most important thing, right? It is what you are going to measure yourself off of, measure your actions off of, measure your behavior, measure your thoughts, measure your intentions, and everything in this house is going to be built upon that stone and measured from that stone. However, if you're not making that commitment, it's not just going to be something that doesn't matter to you. It's actually going to be a stumbling block, right? It's going to be a stumbling block. It's going to be something that you're going to have to deal with, that you're going to have to work around, that you're going to have to figure out how to, essentially not use, right? And I don't want to over-apply this right now, but we see that every day, right? We see that every day in every aspect of our lives. People trying to work around a true commitment to Jesus and the gospel, right? Every discussion I have like this, it just sounds like there's a lot of creative's not the right word. What's the right word? I'll call it creative. Maybe. There's a lot of creative maneuvering around a commitment to Christ, right? When you take this and you press it up against a lot of what people are doing today. And again, right, I see this heavenly wisdom versus earthly wisdom everywhere, right? And so it's hard for me not to make this particular distinction in my head. But everywhere, in every conversation I have, it takes a lot of maneuvering around this stumbling block that is Jesus, right? And I just wish, and it's easy to say, right? I just wish people would realize that it's a whole lot easier to build on that stone than it is to work around it. And so, but again, that's a pithy saying, and I know, yeah, go ahead.
Well, it's just like, there's so many people that are like, they reject the past and they reject the morality of the past.
Sure.
And then they live their lives in a way that's self-destructive and harmful, and they start trying to learn and grow and escape that. conclusion, oh, yeah, participating in these sinful behaviors, I'm not going to call it sinful, but acting in this way is really bad for me and everybody around me. Who would know, right? But it's like they came upon the stone, but they don't want to recognize it as the cornerstone, so it's a stumbling block.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, this is a thing, like you said, that they can work around.
Well, and even then, right, like, to a great extent, it kind of blows my mind, and this is in my notes, this is way longer on this than I intended to be, but it blows my mind. Oh, no. Yes. It is always interesting to me when I see, I don't know, secular moralism, maybe that's the best way I can put it, like secular moralism. There's a guy I work with a lot, and again, this is in my notes, but he is it's weird because he's a good guy. He's a good guy. He commits to his family. He commits to the police work. He does good things. But he's a hardcore atheist, and I thankfully I get to have discussions with him all the time, right? And I love it because it's kind of being a jerk, but I am maybe not the moral high ground, but I'm very comfortable with the moral high ground in most of those conversations. I'm not a jerk about it, but a lot of times I'll ask him, I was like, so why didn't you do good? Like why would you want to do all these good things? Why would you want to? Well, it's the right thing to do. Eric, that's the emptiest reason I've ever heard in my life. That doesn't make any sense, right? Like, I try to do good because Jesus sets this example of ultimate good to be done, right? I was at the depths of everything, right? The depths of humanity, the depths of spirituality, right? I was a slave to sinfulness, and then God himself comes and sacrifices himself in my place to save me from that sinfulness. That is why I try to do good, right? And then again, even like, it's so much easier for me to build on that stone than to work. I'm sorry, I got real stuck there. But like, it's obvious, and we see it everywhere, right? We see the dichotomy that Peter is setting up here, right? Either Jesus is the cornerstone that you build your life upon, or he is this thing that you have to work around. And you have to, right? You have to figure out a way to work around it. And it's hard. It's hard. And I just don't understand why people continue to reject it. Anyway, all right. Verse 9. But you are a chosen race, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a people for his purpose, or a people for his possession, so that you may proclaim the praises of the one who called you out of darkness into his marvelous light. Once you were not a people, but now you are God's people. You had not received mercy, but now you have received mercy. I'll admit, like this particular section here is part of the reason why I think that Peter is speaking to Gentile Christians as opposed to Jewish Christians. I definitely think, and I definitely understand how this writing, if you were speaking to Jewish Christians, that this writing would, perk up your ears. Like, oh yeah, this is Torah language, right? This is language that I grew up with. Like, oh, okay, I kind of see the distinction that Peter's making here, right? He's bringing us into this new covenant with Jesus, this new commitment with Jesus. However, I really do think that the impact that language like that would have on Gentile Christians is incredible, right? The impact that language like that would have on Gentile Christians, right? And the fact of the matter is, like, that's the kind of application that we make to our lives all the time, right? It's like, listen, this language that was used for God's people, right? For this nation of people, these tribes that were legitimately called out of the world to represent God on earth. Peter's now using that language to describe those of us who are committed to Jesus. And I just think I know what it means to me when I read stuff like that, right? Like, I'm not an Israelite. I don't have all this history. I don't have, generations and generations and generations that go back. But thankfully, right, I do understand some of that history, right? Thankfully, I can read the scriptures and I can look at other things, and I know the impact that those words would have, right? And so again, when Peter says in verse 9, "But you are a chosen race, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a people for his possession, so that you may proclaim the praises of the one who called you out of darkness into this marvelous light. Once you were not a people, but now you are God's people. You have not received mercy, or you had not received mercy, but now you have received mercy." And again, right? If these people are not, I said I was going to harp on that, I'm sorry. But if these people were Jewish Christians, right? That last line in particular, it makes a little less sense to me, right? It makes a little less sense to me, right? Whereas now, because of Jesus, right? Because of our commitment to Jesus, because of their commitment to Jesus, right? Once you were not a people, but now you are. Now you are a people. And not only are you a people, you are God's people. You are God's chosen people to now be his representatives here on earth, right? And so it's great because that whole section kind of flows together, right? Like, there are some people over here who view Jesus as a stumbling block, who view Jesus as something you have to work around. But then there are you. Then there are us. There are us that build upon this stone, and we are God's chosen people. We are his possession. We are his representatives here on this earth. Let's go. Verse 11. Dear friends, I urge you as strangers and exiles to abstain from sinful desires that wage war against the soul. Conduct yourselves honorably among Gentiles. There's a good buzzword for this discussion. Conduct yourselves honorably among Gentiles, so that when they slander you as evildoers, they will observe your good works and will glorify God on the day he visits. Again, I'm not going to harp on that word. I know that him using that word cuts at some of my thoughts here, but you can kind of look at some of Paul's works and other works, and the word that's been translated as Gentiles there, Paul has used before to mean pagans or non-believers or others. And then even in some of your translations, I think ESV is always the one that's a little weird. I think the ESV might say pagans there as opposed to Gentiles. But regardless, right? Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, can you put your mic on so that the
I even looked at it and I was like, nah. Is it about 5 minutes?
yeah, it's on mute. Just gotta click it over. Hello? Oh, Thomas, I didn't wear a tie or anything. All right. I'll read that one more time just so
I can get back in my rhythm. Dear friends, I urge you as strangers and exiles to abstain from sinful desires that wage war against the soul. Conduct yourselves honorably among the Gentiles so that when they slander you as evildoers, they will observe your good works and they will glorify God on the day he visits, right? So again, it's more of a practical application of what it looks like to be one of those people to whom Jesus is not the stumbling block, right? It's a practical application of what it looks like to live out a commitment to this gospel, this upside down kingdom, right? And he's going to kind of flesh it out a little bit more as we move forward. But again, it's it's pretty specifically, right? Abstain from sinful desires that wage war against the soul. Conduct yourselves honorably among Gentiles, so that when they slander you as evildoers, they will observe your good works and they will glorify God on the day he visits, right? So again, is that super loud? Thomas, this is why I don't. It's all good? Try and make it work. So again, right, there's kind of a dichotomy that Peter is setting up there, right? He's setting it up with, listen, these folks who are not committed to this gospel, to this upside down kingdom, it's not if they, right? If they commit evil against you, if they slander you, if they do those things, right? But it's when they do these things, right? As people who are committed to only themselves are apt to do, right? Your reaction to those things matters. Your reaction to those things matters, right? Because you are a holy people, right? Because you are his possession, because you represent him to those people, your reaction to this evil that they spew at you, it matters, right? The way you handle those things matters. He's going to go on. In verse 13, we'll start there. And I know, I'll read it and then I'll talk about it. Verse 13. Submit to every human authority because of the Lord, whether to the emperor as the supreme authority or to governors as those sent out by him to punish those who do what is evil and to praise those who do what is good. For it is God's will that you silence the ignorance of foolish people by doing good. Submit as free people, not using your freedom as a cover-up for evil, but as God's slaves. Honor everyone, love the brothers and sisters, fear God, honor the emperor. I know that just those verses right there could be discussed and argued and thought about and preached on for months at a time, right? And I know there's a lot of differing opinions out there, and admittedly, much like who the book is written to, I think there's room for that discussion. I really do, and especially as somebody who if I can continue to apply that metaphor, especially as somebody who works for the emperor, right? There's a lot of complexity in that set of verses to me, right? And admittedly, if you've got something to say, I'm interested. I'm not interested in fighting about it, but if you got something to say and you really want to get it out there, I'm interested. But I do want to kind of, I don't think it's as complicated as we're making it. I really don't, right? I don't think it's as complicated as we're making it, right? Here, Peter says, submit to the authority of the emperor or the governors, right? Be a good citizen, right? Be a good citizen. I don't think Peter is implying, but I don't think that supersedes in any way our commitment to God, right? I think that's obvious. And I think if we come to a point wherein those two things don't match up anymore, then we have to take action, right? Our behavior has to show that we are part of that chosen people. Our behavior has to show that we are part of that called out, right? And our behavior and our action is going to be doing that anyway, right? Peter says as much, right? When you see all these nasty, ugly things that people are throwing at you, right, you have to react differently than you would normally be expected to if you were just committed to yourself and the betterment of yourself, right? But he says in the face of that, you still are expected to act as a good citizen until you can't, right? I really like the way he wraps it up at the end there, or at least the end of that particular section, right? Verse 17, honor everyone, love the brothers and sisters, fear God, honor the emperor, right? I mean, that's a pretty straightforward course of action, right? Honor people, right? Don't slander, don't envy, don't deceit, don't do any of that stuff, right? Honor people, love the brothers and sisters, fear God, honor the emperor, right? I know there's a lot of nuance to that. Yes, sir.
I think it's interesting that a lot of it just comes down to ownership papers. That when one becomes a Christian, when one accepts Jesus as their Lord and Savior, you are not just going, all right, that's a part of who I am, that's a facet, and that goes in the knapsack. It's a change. And so it's this duality where you change inside. What nourishes you, what you crave, what you desire, is supposed to be a change. That commitment isn't just, I went to church camp and that happened and now it's back to me.
Sure.
But I'm also a Christian too. That's
Sure.
something going on in my life.
Right.
But then it also echoes, like you said, on how others perceive me. And I think Peter, like you said, is the perfect example because he's talking about this mentality change and this ownership change, but he's also the guy that wilded out and kind of blew a microchip and cut a guy's ear off.
Sure.
With the what do I think should happen, not what does the word tell me, what would Jesus want? And so I think that that verse 2 or 3 or whatever it is, the craving spiritual milk, it's so overlooked. We focus so heavy on the wanting more than milk. We focus on that verse of like, give me the steak, I'm ready to leave the milk. But there's babies here in the room. Everybody here, I would assume, has been around a baby. Once they get around a bottle and you watch the mouth start working, you're like, oh, that kid knows what's up and he wants a piece of that bottle. And having Peter say like that, like, it shouldn't be something you have to do. It should be something you get to do. And you're like, dude, I'm about it. I want to grow and I want to develop. And then I think that ownership change then manifests to everybody around you that when it hits the fan, when situations get bad and you get punched in the face, people are watching on how we react. And it's like, oh, you're not any different. You're just like me. You just wear a cross around your neck.
Sure.
Versus, oh, whoa,
Sure.
it's different.
Yeah.
Or she has a different mentality.
No, that's
The
good.
ownership thing, I think that I don't know the good metaphor if it's a car changing hands or whatever, but because most of the time that doesn't come with now how you drive your car or whatever.
Right.
But
Right.
that idea of like something you do versus something you become.
Yeah.
I mean, you could just think of it in the terms from before. Like, I think it's a communal metaphor, that cornerstone, right? Because it's the cornerstone on Zion, and the cornerstone on Zion is the Temple Mount, right? So it's where God's temple is, and that's the cornerstone. We're living stones that are now part of that temple together. And so either you're part of that blueprint, or you rejected it because you don't think that's the right cornerstone.
Right.
Then I think also 100% agree, and I think that in verse 4 or 5 when it says, when you come back to the stone, or when you come to the stone, I know you're trying to avoid who it's written to, but I don't think that that's the like wayward sinner coming to Jesus for the first time. I think that's that as you're repeating and as you're coming back and as you're finding
wrap it up here. The last few verses. Household slaves, submit to your masters in all reverence, not only in the good and gentle ones, but also the cruel. For it brings favor if, because of a conscience of God, someone endures grief from suffering unjustly. For what credit is there if when you do wrong and are beaten, you endure it? But when you do what is good and suffer, if you endure it, it brings favor with God. For you were called to this, because Christ also suffered for you, leaving you an example of what you should that you should follow in his steps. He did not commit sin, and no deceit was found in his mouth. When he was insulted, he did not insult in return. When he suffered, he did not threaten, but entrusted himself to the one who judges justly. He himself bore our sins in his body on the tree, so that, having died to sins, we might live for righteousness. By his wounds you have been healed. For you were like sheep going astray, but you have now returned to the shepherd, the overseer of your souls. Again, I'm not going to say anything you guys don't know necessarily, but this obviously isn't. It's not an endorsement of slavery by Peter, right? It's saying that, listen, there are going to be difficult circumstances, right? There are going to be difficult circumstances, and because of this example that has been set to us, right, by suffering in a way that is not deceitful, not slanderous, not mean and cruel spirited, because Jesus set that example for us. Just because we are dealing with these bad and tough circumstances does not mean we forget that this commitment that we've made. And even more so, because we have this commitment and because we have this example, right? Because we have that, we ought to be able to endure those things in a way that is not deceitful, that is not self-indulgent, that is not selfish and self-serving. I'll wrap it up there. I'll pray us out. God, again, thank you so much for your word. Thank you for the book of Peter. And I'm humbled to be able to present something like this. Thank you that we can read your word and see your word and study your word and be better made by it. Please give us that desire and that ability to do so. And it's in your son's name I pray. Amen.